Mike, we're continuing our What I Love About Comics video series. Tell us another thing you love about comics.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with another writer. And it's a guy that I've been following his career for a long time. Not quite since he started, but for a long time. The first time I recognized a talent that I was like, wow, I want to follow this guy, was on an Eclipse miniseries called Liberty Project. What's Liberty Project? No one's ever heard of that. Well, imagine Suicide Squad with teen offenders. The basic concept was you have these kids with superpowers that got in trouble with the law, and so they're going to be locked up as juvenile offenders. But they have superpowers, so we can't do that. So we'd have to put them in maximum security, but that's not fair to them. So someone comes up with the idea, wait a second, how about a work release rehabilitation program where we get these kids together, we keep them separated from the general population, and have them use their superpowers to do good, even though they are criminals in the eyes of the law, and try to work at rehabilitating them so that they can earn their liberty. That's the Liberty Project. I thought that was really cool. And it was done by two people that I had never heard of before. An artist by the name of James Fry, don't ask me what else he's done, and a writer who came on or went on to do a few other things, Kurt Busiek. And I loved the concept. Now, Busiek had done one other thing earlier that I had seen, which was a Red Tornado limited series for DC. And I love Red Tornado, so I had gotten it. But it didn't strike me the way Liberty Project did. So I started following Busiek. And let me tell you, I am very glad that I did. Kurt Busiek really made it big in the 90s when he did this 4-issue series with artist Alex Ross called Marvels, which was the history of the Marvel Universe as seen through the eyes of an ordinary person, a guy named Phil Sheldon, who was a photographer for the Daily Bugle, but wasn't Peter Parker. And it just followed from the start of the Marvel Universe up to current, some of the big stories that had happened and how they affected the ordinary people that lived in this world of Marvels. To say it was career changing is an understatement. It's where Alex Ross went from, oh, that guy that drew the Terminator, to the guy that everybody wanted doing books. And it took Kurt Busiek from the guy that did a couple of issues of Power Man and Iron Fist and some backups in Green Lantern, etc., and made him into the guy to watch what was coming. From there, Busiek worked mainly at Marvel for quite a while, doing things like when Heroes Reborn started, he got to build the replacement for the Avengers, the Thunderbolts, with Mark Bagley, where he took the Masters of Evil, made them look heroic for one issue, for a big reveal that Marvel kept secret, that these bad guys were actually the good guys of the series. As the Masters of Evil start a plan to take over the world once the Fantastic Four and the Avengers are missing, by pretending to be good guys so they can get access to their resources. And as the series went on, some of the villains decided that they liked being heroes, that they wanted to be heroes, and others stayed villainous. So they ended up with a split between them. Former villains fighting villains, new heroes wanted by the police for their villainous past, Hawkeye leaving or deciding to join up with them, a huge confrontation with the Avengers when they came back. Great stuff all the way through. Okay, at the same time he's doing that in Thunderbolts, well, actually a year later, Heroes Reborn, or Heroes Return ends, Heroes Reborn ends, and Heroes Return comes about with the start of a new Avengers series as they're back on Earth, and a start of a new Iron Man, and a new Fantastic Four, and a new Thor. Well, that one was a little bit later, but that's okay. Okay, so what do you have? You have Avengers, written by, surprise, surprise, Kurt Busiek, drawn by the incomparable George Perez. A great series of Avengers. You've heard me talk about it with Perez. You'll hear me talk about it if I ever talk about the Avengers themselves, my favorite superhero team ever. But a great run that went back to the roots of what makes the Avengers great. They were the world's greatest superheroes teaming together to fight menaces that no one could deal with. And it felt that way as they fought Kang, an invasion of Ultron, menaces that you could not have one hero possibly defeat. And yet they kept going. At the same time that Busiek is writing Thunderbolts, villains turned heroes, turned villains, turned we don't know, and Avengers, he also took over writing Iron Man with artist Sean Chen, and then later co-writer Roger Stern when his workload was getting too big, bringing Tony Stark back into the Marvel Universe after some really disastrous times. You know, because what had happened in Iron Man and Avengers just before Heroes Reborn was Tony Stark was discovered to be a traitor to the Avengers and was defeated by his teenage version brought to the future, who then was Iron Man? Iron Kid? Well, Iron Man, but a young Iron Man. Horrible stories that were very forgettable. One of the good things that Heroes Reborn did was wipe them out. And then when Busiek comes back after the not really good stories of Heroes Reborn, or of Heroes Return, or Reborn, with Heroes Return, he did a great classic run on Iron Man that felt like Iron Man should. So here he is doing 3 Marvel books simultaneously, and big name books at that. What do you do for a follow-up? Well, his Iron Man run went from, 98 to about 2002, 4 years. 4 to 5 years. When he's finishing up, he jumped ship from Marvel to go over and write for Justice League, and did a great run of JLA. This was what was going on in JLA at the time, is they would hire a writer to do their best Justice League story, give them about a year, and then we get the next great writer in. And they had picked Kurt Busiek for one of those. Now, while he's co-writing Justice League, right after his Avengers run, Kurt Busiek also reteamed with George Perez to do this little 4-issue miniseries that you may have heard of, Justice League Avengers. Another great story. They picked Perez because he was the only one that had drawn both teams for a length of time, and they picked Busiek because he was the only one that had written both teams for acclaimed stories and was still working in comics. Great story that used the history of both the Marvel Universe and the DC Universe, artifacts that had been found and important in both worlds that might be semi-mystic, Cosmic Cube, Serpent Crown type things that were pushing the worlds together. If you've never read JLA Avengers, I strongly recommend you read it. Now, at the same time that Busiek's doing that, he also created a whole new team for DC, similar with Marvel when he created a whole new team with Thunderbolts. Here he is doing Justice League, and he also created Power Company, which, again, very little known series. Went 18 issues and about 5 or 6 specials. Excellent series. Basic premise was, okay, you get people with superpowers. What happens when a businessman gets superpowers and decides to create his own team? And that was Josiah Power, the head of Power Company. So he hires a bunch of superpowered heroes to put them together to be his corporate business team, superhero team, and help fight crime to bring prestige to the business. Used some great original characters. I highly recommend it. Then that ended. DC did 1 year later, where they jumped a year ahead and had major changes in stories. Kurt Busiek was writing not only Superman for Up and Away, which went through Superman and Action Comics actually, but he also did a relaunch on Aquaman, where they decided to take Aquaman in a fantasy direction as the Sword of Atlantis. Along the way, Busiek also did a 1 year limited series with Mark Bagley, reuniting them from Thunderbolts at DC, but this series was a little different twist. It was called Trinity. 52 issues in 52 weeks. And it was dealing with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Again, really good stuff. You'd think that would be enough for someone's career, but no. Kurt Busiek wasn't finished and still isn't finished, because along the way he also did creator-owned series, one of which, Astro City, just hit over 100 issues, all written by Kurt Busiek, most of them drawn by the same person, Brent Anderson, all of them with covers by Alex Ross and character designs by Alex Ross. Great series that deals with superheroes with a twist. What's the twist? We deal with these superheroes as if they were people. We deal with people as if they really lived in a world with superheroes. We deal with different characters in this whole world where there's a Superman type and a Fantastic Four and a Spider-Man and a this, that, and the other. But, of course, none of them are really there. It's just versions of them, along with a ton of new characters. Great stories. I was hooked on Astro City when I first read the preview copy of #1, In Dreams I Fly, about their Superman character and what a day in his life was like. This is what comics can be. And it's a good enough book that you can ask Steve, you can ask Cody, you can go back and ask Sue, you can ask Eric, you can ask just about anyone that's worked for me since it's come out. It's one of the books that I pull out and have each employee read at one time or another to know what good comics can be. Astro City is what Kurt Busiek is currently working on, along with one other series that he started with Image, Autumnlands, or, if you were there for the first issue, Tooth and Claw. Yeah, they had to change the name because they forgot that there was another series called Tooth and Claw that Image had previously published. But Autumnlands is about a person who was a soldier brought far into the future where humans are gone. Instead, all the animals have mutated to be human-like, and magic rules instead of science. But magic is dying out. There's very little left. And if it doesn't come back soon, their civilization will fall. How can this one human, Dewey, the savior who brought magic in the first place, bring magic back when he doesn't know how it got brought in the first place? It's a great series. Read it. That's one of the reasons that I love comics. Writers like Kurt Busiek.